Major Spoilers podcast covers news, reviews, and of course, spoilers, and goes into details about the topics discussed. So if you haven't read, listened, or watched the items we talk about, you might want to come back later.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Rodrigo.
And I'm Steven, and you're listening to the Major Spoilers podcast, the podcast for pop culture and comic fans.
In this issue, JMS on AMS, El Tigre Blanco nace de nuevo. Marshall Moo Montana rides again, plus the entire history of American comics in easy-to-swallow, digestible chunks. It's everything you never knew you wanted in a podcast, brought to you by top-notch educators, world-renowned dungeon masters, and the live-action version of the comic book guide. So get your popcorn, dim the lights. Remember, you can't tell your players without a scorecard, because the Major Spoilers podcast is up the down staircase across the universe, and it's on the air.
Welcome to issue 1144 of the Major Spoilers podcast. Thank you, everybody, for downloading and checking us out this week. And if you're our first-time listener, we welcome you. And you got a bunch of back matter to listen to. Now, hey, I want to do one thing really quick. Well, actually, two things really quick. First, it used to be Apple would only allow you to have the most recent 300 episodes of your show in its archive, and then they lifted that. So, like, the entire Critical Hit archive, the entire 1144 episodes of the Major Spoilers podcast were all there. But Libsyn, who's our hosting provider, they're in the middle of doing something right now with their system. And so for whatever reason, you're only going to be able to find the most recent 300 episodes of any of our shows on their respective feeds. So they're working on that. They know that that is an issue. So if you're, really a diehard fan and you're wanting to say, what did they talk about back in issue 670. Well, first of all, it was a fantastic, or even 200. You're not going to be able to find that right now. Second thing I'm going to ask that everybody goes and checks out is the Major Spoilers Book Club. That is something that Dr. Bradley, Will, and I have been doing for almost 2 years now. I'm very surprised we've been doing this for 2 years. But every month we pick a book and we read it along with our fans over on our Discord server, and then we record a free episode for you to listen to and comment on, etc., in the Discord server. You can find that free episode over on our Patreon page, patreon.com/majorspoilers. You do not have to be a patron to listen to the book club, but we think that if you go over there and check it out, maybe you'll want to check out some of our other stuff, including the Major Spoilers podcast pre-show, where this week we talked about the controversial subject, who needs who more, Super Sentai or Power Rangers, and how flat is your pancake? That is what we talked about over the pre-show this week. That is behind the paywall, and we certainly appreciate everyone who does that. And we love each and every one of them. But if you're looking for more free stuff from Major Spoilers, go check out our book club. The book club for October is Project Hail Mary. That's soon to be a new movie coming to the big screen, and so we're going to review it before it hits the big screen later this year. So Project Hail Mary is our current book, and if you want to talk about it, head over to our Discord server, jump into the reading corner, and we have a sub-thread there specifically for this book. So go and check that out. If you don't know where our Discord is, just look in the show notes. There's a link right there for you. All right, everybody, let us talk about some comic books. I was really surprised. There are a ton of comic books that were out this week that are fantastic. In fact, a bunch of comics that came out last week that were fantastic, although I will say I was kind of concerned that Dynamite Entertainment didn't release any comics last week because they were supposed to have their much-hailed Elvira Meets Harley Quinn book out last week, and I contacted them like, is everything okay? We didn't get our review copies, and they're like, hey, due to ongoing issues with Diamond and a mess up at our printer, we had to delay comics by a week. So that Harley Quinn Elvira issue is out this week at your local comic book retailer. Spoiler alert, I've already read it. It's pretty good. So go and check that out. But let's see what we have this week. Matthew, you've got actually a comic from last week, White Tiger Reborn. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, that White Tiger was coming back. What'd you think?
Mm-hmm. Well, first thing you need to know, and I didn't realize this either, apparently White Tiger, Marvel's first Latinx superhero, first appeared 50 years ago in the pages of Deadly Hands of Kung Fu number 19. Now, the original White Tiger, Hector Ayala, was actually a Puerto Rican immigrant. And Hector, I don't know if you know this, died horribly because Bendis. But White Tiger Reborn, it is a number one. It's got a number one on it. But anyway, written by Daniel José Older.
There's not a number two on it.
What's the first word of one shot?
Yeah, not a number.
It's a one. Anyway, Daniel José Older handles the first story. Cynthia Pelayo handles the second. Art by Moises Hidalgo. This is actually not the story of Hector, inasmuch as it kind of is. Hector's younger sister, Ava Ayala, is the current White Tiger. You may remember her from the pages of Avengers Academy a few years ago. She's been bouncing around the Marvel Universe. I want to say she was part of Sunspot's New Avengers team around 2016, 2017. And she is, throughout this issue, having trouble with her powers until she realizes she's being haunted by the spirit of her brother. And it's really weird to me because I read these White Tiger comics when I was 8 and 9 years old to realize that in universe, he died, a couple years ago. I'm pretty sure White Tiger died over 25 years ago, real time. But nonetheless, we find that Hector's spirit is haunting her. And throughout the issue, she has to try and figure out what's behind it. I'm going to give you a hint. It's an old school X-Men villain. I won't tell you his name, but it starts with a D and ends with a spare. And at the end of the issue, Hector seems to still be hanging around. Ava may have new powers, and Detective Blackburn, who was a major, well, I don't want to say major because it wasn't a major story, but who was a big player in Deadly Hands of Kung Fu back in the 1975, 76, 78 days, is back in play. All in all, this is a really, really good issue, you guys. This may be the best Ava Ayala story I've ever read. And I think part of it is the fact that it is written by people who understand the character's heritage, where she comes from. And there are moments in here where at one point she has to go to somebody who seems to be an elder and a seer who ends up talking to Hector's ghost. And that's where Hector comes into the story. But it's really kind of cool to see these concepts that date back literally to when George Perez was a young kid drawing Masters of Kung Fu and said, "Hey, Roy, why don't we have any Puerto Rican superheroes?" And he's like, "I don't know, let's make one." And George Perez drew up the White Tiger in the pages of Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. 4 slices of meatloaf, a good White Tiger story. I'm not saying it's an homage to George Perez, but it's an homage to George Perez, you guys, and it's a loving homage done very well. Definitely worth your time.
So I wonder if this one shot is out because of the anniversary of White Tiger.
Month, isn't it?
Well, it could be that too, but I also wonder if it isn't because of the character showing up in the Daredevil Reborn series over on Disney Plus.
That could be part of it too.
The last year, I guess earlier this year, it's been forever. This decade has been a century for sure. The White Tiger, that's one of the cases that Matt Murdock is defending in the first couple of episodes of the season. And it is Hector is the White Tiger in that, and he gets outed. And so everybody knows who he is, and his daughter, I think it's his daughter, finds the suit at the end of the season. And so it's like, oh, could this be, seeing Ava, again, it's his daughter, not his sister, in the TV show. But a lot of people seem to take to the White Tiger on the Daredevil show. So I wonder if that is something that helped prompt this forward to say, hey, let's capitalize on this success, or if it is, Heritage Month, or if it is just the 50th anniversary or whatever is going on. It just seems like it's an interesting time for this one to hit the stands.
I don't remember. I feel like I should know who DC's first Latinx superhero was, but I didn't realize that Hector was Marvel's first, because honestly, 75 seems very late for that. But I guess 77 was Black Lightning, who was DC's first real headliner superhero. So yeah,
let's see.
50 years ago. DC's first Latinx character?
I'm trying to see. Oh, here's a stupid listicle of 10 Latinx heroes that were around before Jaime Reyes. That's really probably not what we
not
need.
helpful.
Yeah, not helpful.
Hey,
who was the first?
I mean, it's not
superhero?
No shade to him, but Jaime Reyes is very recent.
Yeah.
That's true. 2005.
Oh man, everything is all about blue.
I guess it's not
just doing first Latinx superhero DC Comics just is nothing but Beetle stuff.
It's like that's the thing. It's like the reason why there are so many blonde superheroes, right? Why Captain America and Hawkeye originally, and like all like Hank Pym, like there's all these blonde guys. It's because they were just throwing blonde guys at the wall every 3 seconds, right? It's like getting any superhero to stick or any ethnicity or identity in a superhero to stick like requires a lot of trial and error, right? It's like Blue Beetle finally stuck, great, fantastic. It's like Ms. Marvel finally sticks, great, awesome. Like it took a lot of like Firebirds and like, you know what I mean? Like just like a lot of other superheroes to like finally get a Latino superhero to stick.
So DC, I need to find who wrote this article because, okay. So this is the official DC.com website. Here are the 10 heroes that appeared before Jaime Reyes. Number 1, El Gaucho, appeared in 1955. El Dorado, or El Dorado, 1981.
1972.
Vibe, 1984. Wildcat, Yolanda Montez, 1985. Gangbuster, 1987. Panther, 1990. Renee Montoya, 1992. Kyle Rayner, 1994. Aztec, 1996. Hawk Girl, 1999.
Kyle Rayner's Latino?
Kyle Rayner is half Latino.
Yeah,
I think that it's a retcon.
Oh.
Kyle's mother is Puerto Rican, I believe.
Okay, well, whatever. Welcome, Kyle. It's fine.
Yeah. And then they just end it with Hawk Girl, Kendra Saunders, 1999. So
sure.
So
there you go. Those are 10 heroes. So it looks like, according to DC's own history, it looks like El Gaucho.
That's actually funny because the Batman of Many Nations probably got a ton of firsts. So I wouldn't be surprised if like the first Native American superhero is also like Man of Bats or whatever.
I think we could make a strong argument for 1940 because the Whip, El Castigo, appeared in Flash Comics #1, and he is a Zorro ripoff, but he is the great-great-grandson of Don Fernando, the original El Castigo, who was a Zorro ripoff in colonial California.
And that's a DC character or a Marvel character?
That's a DC character, yeah. And that 4 generations later. Now, granted, his name is Rodney. But
Rodney, it happens.
And Rodney is not necessarily the best example because Rodney has a Herbie Goes Bananas level phonetic fake Mexican accent.
Oh, no. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. And thankfully, he only appears like 5 or 6 times. And when they revived him in the 80s for All-Star Squadron, somebody asked him about it, and he's like, "Oh, I gave that up because it was offensive."
Yeah.
And I'm like, thanks,
as far as first Native American DC Comics superheroes, there's one that I'm not going to say their name, but their last name is Smith, who debuted in Detective Comics 151 in 1949. He was a Sioux tribesman. And he served as a sheriff of a small western town of Elkhorn. Okay. Then you have, as Rodrigo, as you said, Man of Bats and Raven Red, 1954. Dawnstar, 1977. Apache Chief, also 1977. And then Super Chief, 1961.
Saga Nowana. Saga Nowana is interesting. That's early Gil Kane art. And he did try to make him look like realistic and appropriate. So he doesn't have like long hair and the traditional like weird war bonnet. He actually had the the Mohawk haircut. Is that offensive now? He has the Mohawk haircut that his people would have had during the pre-Columbian era. So that's kind of cool.
It's nice when, especially old school comic book writers and artists do like any research at all, like love Jack Kirby, anytime anything like just slightly outside of his like experience is put on the page for him, I'm like, oh God. Oh God, why?
If it's not a two-fisted kid from Brooklyn, I feel like
exactly.
You know, you can go look up Smith's name online, and you're like, I don't know if that is supposed to be, you know, an actual name or if it's supposed to be one of those somewhat coded racist names. But then in quotes, it's got something else. That
is it the rhyming Smith?
Yeah, well, yeah. I'll just say the name, and again, this is the name. This is not from me. The name, his nickname is Pow Wow Smith. He's got a different name that I'm not going to say because it really sounds like something not appropriate. Yeah, not really a slur, but like, just go look it up, and you'll see what I'm saying.
Insensitive, yeah. That was his nickname, but he was a relatively, and it's
well, again, I'm just going by what the internet says when you say, "Hey, who's the first Native American DC superhero?" Well, this guy, Pow Wow Smith.
Yeah.
Western
comics in like 1954 ? 55, 54? I don't know.
Well, Pow Wow Smith was 49.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
He's a dude.
Okay, so back to more recent stuff. We'll bring you back to the future. This week from Marvel Comics, it's The Amazing Spider-Man Torn #1 from J. Michael Straczynski and Perry Perez. This is one of those stories that takes place when Peter Parker was at Empire State University. And so this is a story from long ago, before Gwen Stacy had her unfortunate accident on the bridge, when MJ was still questioning whether she wanted to be a supermodel or an actor. And, of course, we have Harry Osborn and the Flash Thompson doing their thing as well. A lot of people look at J. Michael Straczynski's run of Spider-Man and say this was one of the greatest runs of all time. And I've read little bits and pieces here and there of that, and I agree it is pretty fun. But I think I need to see where this story goes, because the thing is, Peter is torn between doing his thing as Spider-Man and whether he's actually going to have a future or not. And of course, he and Gwen Stacy are not really a couple yet. She's trying to hook him up with MJ. He's not really sure. He's kind of flaky. Everybody's like, oh, what's wrong with Peter Parker? And he hears some gunshots, and the library has been robbed of an ancient tome, which when blood drips on it, turns this woman into a demon creature. And now Spider-Man is torn on what he must do with his own future, which we kind of already know. I enjoyed this for what it is. It's a fun, interesting story that takes place in between the pages, in between the issues of long ago times. And so I think it's kind of fun and quaint to go back and revisit that time period. Perez's art is interesting. I think they do a really good job of capturing the spirit of the design of the characters from back in the day. I will say, though, that if I were to say one negative criticism, a lot of times the panels are very open, meaning that there's a lot of empty space around the characters. And I think for a comic book, I think I'd rather have that space closed up a little bit more so that we can see the characters in a little bit more detail. That's my biggest critique of the issue. But otherwise, the art is great. The coloring is great. I really like the story. But I wonder, though, if people are really interested in Peter Parker as a college student. So because of that, solid story. I'll probably just pick up issue #2 to see where it goes next. I'm going to give this a solid 3 out of 5 slices of meatloaf. A fun read, very interesting. If you long for the days of Peter Parker as a college student, you probably want to pick this up this week when it arrives in stores. What's coming ahead the next week? Well, we only have to look at Rodrigo to find out what's going on with the Cowboys of Moo Mesa. Were you a fan of this cartoon show when it was on the air?
I wanted to be, but it was, back when I was a kid, you still had to watch things on TV as opposed to, getting them on demand. So as a kid, even though I actually had some toys from the Cowboys of Moo Mesa, I never managed to watch an actual episode of the cartoon.
It was on at 6
This,
a.m.
like a few other things, like for example, like Pirates of the Dark Waters never made it to Mexico. It's like it's kind of this apocryphal show that I only understand through the toys. So the great thing is that now there's a comic book about Cowboys of Moo Mesa, and not only that, but it's part of the Nacelle-verse,
right?
Which may be
Biker Mice from Mars.
And this is something possibly the most bonkers collection of properties in under one umbrella. You look at something like, does it make sense to have Transformers and G.I. Joe in the same place? Well, they're making it work, but like, man, some of the stuff in the Nacelle-verse, Sectors.
Yep.
Yeah.
The Great Garlu.
Yeah. RoboForce, Biker Mice from Mars. It's something. And here's the thing. There may be, again, I'm jumping into issue 2, but there may be something in this book that relates to the larger Nacelle-verse. So already they're seeding it. I'm gonna put it. What?
Is it Bozo the Clown?
No. It's like a thing. Like that.
Yeah, there's
that orb from Heavy Metal.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, there was if you go back like last year, they had a whole Nacelle universe launch, and it had that character in it that was the big talking head guy, bringing everybody together. I don't know if that's who it is or not. It might be. It doesn't look like it. It's like, I don't know what it looks like, but it's a big giant head doing things. So yes, at some point you will probably see all of these guys gang up together, so you can see the Sectars and the Power Lords teaming up and fighting alongside the robots of Moo Mesa.
RoboForce.
Yes, the biker mice from Moo Mesa. So please, Rodrigo, please tell us more about this issue. Now, is this issue 1 or 2 that you're reading?
This is issue 2.
Okay.
I missed issue 1. But so I'm just gonna tell you guys up front, I'm giving it 3.5 slices of meatloaf. And that is both because I think it's good and it has potential. It's like simultaneously because they're still doing a lot of exposition, right? I feel like there are properties where you can assume that people are pretty familiar with them, so you need to do minimal exposition, right? If you launch a new Superman comic book, you can assume that you don't have to do a lot of exposition, like a new volume or whatever. Cowboys of Moo Mesa, not very well known, honestly. Again, if you're like my generation or older, you at least saw the toys around. Or maybe caught an episode of the thing. Barnyard Commandos. That's another one that was like, is this an actual show or just a fever dream? Anyway, it's all coming back. It's fun, but it's awful. That's actually okay. I'm just gonna review this comic.
Now you know what it's like to be me every day.
Yeah, no, this happens. But it is good. I really like the art. It's just chock full of cow puns and like basically any sort of like ranch slice or slash like deer bull, whatever, like lots of that.
Yeah.
So it's got that going for you if that's what you're into.
Yeah, better cow puns than cow pies.
That's right.
That's what we do on this comedy pod. That's what we do on this comedy podcast. CIA that's listening in. We make those kind of references.
Hook 'em.
Whackity schmackity. Please continue.
So yeah, good times. Again, a lot of exposition here. This is sort of the closing of the arc started by the first issue. More characters are introduced. So I'm looking forward to like issues 3, 4, maybe, where like we start seeing them actually get involved and get some character development. But a solid 3.5 slices of meatloaf. Art is
Very
good.
Cool.
They look like the guys.
Nice. Very cool. I never got around to watching this, or what's the guy? Brave Star. I never watched that.
Brave Star was earlier than this.
Is there another one?
Otter and I
is
used
Brave
to
Star?
watch this
Are they cyber horse people on Brave Star?
There is one cyber horse and also some robot horses.
Okay, I was trying to remember because I remember
transforming horseman.
Okay, because I remember seeing. I have vague flashes of like commercials or something. And I was just like, same way with Moo Mesa. I do remember Biker Mice from Mars, although I never saw an episode of that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's interesting.
Cowboys of Moo Mesa was on at 6 a.m. when we were 22 or 23, because Otter and I watched it when we lived together, which would have been the peak era of Power Rangers around 93.
Okay. I was probably doing radio station shifts at 6 a.m.
You probably were, yeah.
Like, again, Cowboys of Moo Mesa, Pirates of the Dark Water existed briefly in this time period where I was still living in Mexico, so they hadn't trickled down there. And then when I moved to the United States, I jumped forward in entertainment time, and so just like missed them entirely.
I see. Mm-hmm. I see.
Was Inhumanoids part of the Nacelle verse now, or am I thinking of...
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. Same way with Pizza.
No, I think. Oh no, never mind. I was thinking of the Herculoids. Never mind. Those are.
that's over at a different company. So right now, Dynamite has Herculoids. They just did Herculoids. They just announced Thundar the Barbarian is coming in January. What else do they have? They've got Space Ghost and Johnny Quest over there. The Space Ghost thing is still ongoing, I believe. And then on the Disney afternoon stuff, they've got Gargoyles, Darkwing Duck. And they just announced a Darkwing Duck Gargoyles crossover coming next year, Rodrigo. So you might be interested in that. And the cool thing is Greg Weisman and Tad Stones, the original writers of the TV shows, are teaming up to do this. I think it's a one-shot at Dynamite Entertainment next year. So we got the story over at majorspoilers.com. That's where you want to go find all the cool stories. Don't go to those other sites. They're just feeding you spam. They're going to make you. They're going to make you fat and bloated and make you look in the mirror and go, I don't feel good about myself. But go over to Major Spoilers. You're going to suddenly look in the mirror and go, oh, my complexion is cleared up. I feel wonderful. So that's why you want to go to majorspoilers.com for all the cool news, more reviews, and even more. And if you love the Major Spoilers podcast, this is the downer part. You know, this show. This is actually a positive part. This show exists because of listeners like you. Patreon is how we keep our mics on. That's how we keep the comics coming in and the episodes free for everyone. But let's say you just want a little bit more. For just $5 a month, less than the cost of one comic, you can get bonus shows, behind the scenes chats, and early access to certain episodes like Critical Hit. And you're not just supporting us, you're joining the team that keeps this community alive. So sign up today, patreon.com/majorspoilers, and let's keep making awesome stuff together. And then you can look in the mirror and feel good about yourself.
Yay!
Yay! All right, so I got a question for you guys. It kind of spins out of the Amazing Spider-Man review. Okay. And it has to do with heroes growing older. Batman stayed the same age. Dick Grayson is now older than Batman. He's in geriatric care, last I looked. Superman stayed the same age. Peter Parker has aged. Should we have characters like Peter Parker just be the perpetual high schooler or college student? Because it seems like with Spider-Man, especially, we keep rebooting Spider-Man or creating spin-offs of Spider-Man, like your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, where we've put him back in high school. Or we've got the amazing, or the Spider-Man 94, where he's clearly in college. And then we have, Dan Slott's run that has him going from teacher to entrepreneur to, sleeping on people's couches.
Bon vivant and playboy.
Yeah. How do you guys like your Spider-Mans? Should they age and evolve, or should they be eternally young, forever young, as the song goes?
Don't ever quote Rod Stewart to me. Okay, so I am going to say something that may sound out of character for me. So please allow me to finish the thought. But as a whole, continuity, locked down continuity, where everything has to be in its place and you're trying to do like real world time is terrible in comic books. And the reason that happens is because comic books are essentially liminal stories, because we don't necessarily know how much time takes place. You can have a whole year of Spider-Man take place over the course of an afternoon, and that's literally all of 1973, publishing-wise. But for Peter Parker, it was Tuesday. But if you remember the first run at Valiant Comics, where Jim Shooter and Janet Jackson slavishly and intentionally kept everything in real time, month to month to month to month, characters aged at a realistic rate. 5 years into a book, a character was 5 years older, also sucked. And the reason for that is because it became the point rather than the stories being told. I'm a big believer in, yes, I do want to know when X story takes place, but I feel like we should be able to have a story of Peter Parker being 16, like Untold Tales of Spider-Man or the new JMS series, on the stands at the same time as Old Man Spider, without the radioactive semen, or something where Peter's in his late 30s teaching kids at Midtown High and he's, turning full circle. I feel like kind of that Hellboy approach where, oh yeah, this takes place at some point during, or Atomic Robo's history. Here's a story that happened to Robo in 1986.
Uh-huh. Rodrigo, what about you?
The idea of having both.
All right. Okay. Rodrigo, what about you?
Oh man, I just got into this rant with a friend of mine who was complaining about Batman. And so it's like problem one, these comics are ongoing, right?
Right.
So I find that a lot of the times the problem isn't so much the time period for the character so much as like the initial like kind of ethos, like the initial thought of like, this is who Spider-Man should be. So when we're talking about Batman, we're talking about like kind of the worst Batman stories as like Batman is the most super special baby. Like he is like practically perfect in every way. He can do no wrong. He's super cool. He never sits down, right? Like we were talking specifically about that run of Batman where he gets like isekai'd back in time and some like cosmic entity is like, whoa, Batman is so cool, you guys, right? Or something like that. I don't remember the whole thing. And it's like Spider-Man, I think, runs into a similar thing, and there's like dissenting opinions. Like it's like Spider-Man should be like a dorky teen. I think sometimes when he gets dragged back into that, sometimes it makes for not very good stories because they're trying to do other things with Spider-Man, but this like initial nugget of like, this is who Spider-Man is, keeps getting in the way. So like, I'm okay with Spider-Man at different stages of development, as long as like maybe it's a little softer of like Peter Parker is fundamentally a good person, fundamentally like kind of has a real hang up about responsibility, that sort of thing. And less so like, gee, golly, I'm late for class or like whatever.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with, I would like Peter Parker to be stuck at an age like Batman and Superman. But I do appreciate that when Spider-Man was first created, we got to see him grow up, right? One of the things is that I've learned over the years is that when you're trying to attract readers, you kind of want to attract readers a generation below of where your hero is at. So, if Spider-Man, Peter Parker, were at Empire State, then he's definitely attracting high schoolers and maybe some middle grade readers into his adventures. And if you get them hooked at that high school age, then they're probably going to continue to read in college and older, right?
Sure.
If you do it at a high school, if you do him as a perpetual high schooler, again, I don't really have a problem with that, except you do get into issues of, especially when it comes to any kind of a love story, sexualization of minors. And so we've seen that kind of blow up in people's faces, especially across the street at DC Comics back in, I forget what year it was, with the Teen Titans. You remember that big debacle, Matthew, with, was it not Arrowhead?
Terra and Deathstroke?
Yeah. Well, yes, there is that, but also in the early 2000s with Cassie.
Starfire?
Wonder Girl and Robin and Superboy.
Well, no, but yeah, they were essentially drawing the characters.
Do you remember the scandal around Teen Titans? Which one?
Yeah, which one?
2011. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
The one.
Where
yes.
Wonder Girl,
yes,
who was canonically 16,
correct, was
drawn like the feature dancer
23-year-old. Yes,
in a glowy red costume. Yep.
Yes, correct. So that's a problem that I would have about saying let's keep Peter Parker at high school, because then you can't really explore a lot of the romance issues that younger people might have questions about, because then you get into certain areas that might get you in trouble, a la spoiler, literal spoiler. And then I think it's okay to have an adult Peter Parker, but again, if you're trying to attract new readers, especially at the high school age, they may not be able to identify with all the troubles that Peter Parker is having as an adult, because they don't experience those kinds of things, if that makes sense. So I think if I had to stick Peter Parker at a specific age, I would say like 21-year-old college student going to grad school. And then I think you could bring in the high schoolers, maybe some middle grade readers.
And I think that the bigger problem, at least for me, with Peter, and I want to say this as someone who has, documented parent issues, specifically mommy issues, having Aunt May constantly around, even when Peter is 30 and 35 and 40, and being as overwhelming as she is. I mean, it worked in Marvel Zombies, where his whole thing was, I ate Aunt May, boo-hoo. But at a certain point, we had a Peter Parker who was ostensibly married in his 30s. And the only thing that, actually pushed him past the limits was Aunt May being sick. There comes a point where if you have this character who starts out being the child, and you don't let that character emotionally mature,
cut the apron strings.
Exactly. You get a character where there's a time in the early 2000s, and for all intents and purposes, I'm not saying One More Day is good, but at the very least, it did manage to put some of that to rest, to where you do kind of want to say, Pete, your mom figure is going to pass away at some point, and you need to get some frickin' therapy. But then you have to talk to every single male hero at DC about his dad, and at that point, it's just too much trouble.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? Matthew brought up is like, what if you like check back on him and it's like a Hellboy kind of thing, right? And I'm like, oh man, yeah, that would be real good. And then I was like, oh wait, that's Astro City. Man, what a good comic Astro City is.
Let's just go. We're all going to read some.
Let's just go read Astro City.
Yeah, this is now an Astro City podcast.
Listeners, what do you think? Should Spider-Man stay at one age? Should he grow and evolve just like a regular person? Are we going to get to see octogenarian Spider-Man at some point in the future? You can share your thoughts by heading over to our Major Spoilers Discord server. You can join the Discord server for free. Jump in either the Major Spoilers podcast channel, or the comic book channel, or the Poll of the Week channel, and share your thoughts there. Hey kids, comics! As we record this episode, it is Howard Chaykin's birthday today, October 7th.
Oh.
And so what a better way to celebrate than by reading one of his mini comic book series, Hey Kids Comics. There's a couple of volumes of this. This one is a 5-issue collection, and then I think there was a second volume after this. I think there's like 17 issues total in this thing. But Hey Kids Comics, in a nutshell, is the untold tale of the comic book history, and we've changed the names to protect the innocent. But you can really tell who Stan Lee is throughout this entire series.
Yes. There are two people, because I'm not a comics history guy. There are two people that I clocked immediately, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong. One of them is Stan Lee, obviously, because he looks just like Stan Lee. And the other one was Jack Kirby, because it's like the moment he's introduced is like, this is like a guy who looks like he could beat up any two of us.
Yeah,
Yes.
Sid Mitchell is literally drawn to be Jack Kirby.
Yeah, I was like, okay, like there's two people that I just immediately know who they are. Everybody else, I just don't. I'm sure I've been like we have here on the show talked plenty of comic book history, but it doesn't stick. Like the names of like actual real normal people don't stick. It's like superhero stuff.
I think it's fun to try to go through and figure out who's who, and some of them you can get pretty close. But Chaykin does say in the back of the book, he's like, listen, I gave you two just easy no-brainers. You know who these are. The rest of the people, either you can dig and do the research, but more than likely what you're going to find out is that these are combinations of multiple people that I combined into a single role. Like, who was the female person in the Marvel bullpen? I believe she is the woman central character that we follow throughout the series.
Marie Severin is that's the one who I think is. Yeah. And I mean, just looking at Ron Fogel, the creator of Midnight, clearly Bob Kane.
Wally Wood is right. Bob Kane is definitely in it. Wally Wood is referenced. I think he's the first funeral that they go to. I don't think that's the Jack Kirby one. No, Jack Kirby is the first funeral that they go to.
And then,
but they do make a mention of Wally.
Are Siegel and Schuster?
Yeah, they do make a reference to Wally Wood in there as well with the creepy comic stuff. But I think you could go through this whole book and you could try to figure out who's who, and that's kind of fun. And I'm sure you can go if you don't want to go through and do the work. You can go online and probably find where people are talking about this. But I think that
I got a question about another one. Like, is it okay to do this? Is like, does this make people angry if you like try to guess who's who or whatever?
I don't think it makes people angry. I think Chaykin's whole point was the comic industry is not as great as people think it is. And here are the untold tales, real tales and situations that have happened. And I'm protecting the names. I'm changing the names to protect the innocent, but also to let you know that comics will break your heart, kid. Jack Kirby saying so.
Yeah. Is Tom Hollenbeck Todd McFarlane?
I don't know who that one is. I don't know if it's Todd McFarlane or Rob Liefeld.
Could be.
I feel like he may be a composite of a couple of people, because I got a little bit of kind of an Alan Moore, Grant Morrison vibe.
Oh, really?
So,
I don't know.
So,
but
here's why I think it's Todd McFarlane. The ones that we know, right? Sid Mitchell and is it Bob Rose? Is that Oh, never mind. Because I was gonna say, like, I feel like a lot of the ones that we know, their names fit.
Yes.
Right. Sid Mitchell is Jack Kirby, like same number of syllables, and Tom Hollenbeck has the same number of syllables as Todd McFarlane. Wait, does it?
Bob Rose is Stanley, Tom Hollenbeck, Todd McFarlane. Kind of, sort of, yeah.
Yeah, I guess it depends how you parse it out. But I was like, that's why I thought maybe that was it. Because like other names didn't fit in. And like I was wondering if he was kind of doing that as a hint or if I'm just reading way too much into this.
Yeah, no, I was looking for that kind of same thing too. And I think that's natural to find that in here. I was thinking more of Rob Liefeld, just because if you follow Rob Liefeld,
he really blew up. Yeah.
He number one, he blew up and was a big kind of rock star name back in the 90s, but also, in my opinion, maybe a little bit too, I don't know the right way to say it. I don't want to say arrogant. I don't want to say full of himself. Maybe braggadocious is the word.
There's like a cockiness to him.
Yeah. And I don't remember that coming from Todd McFarlane at the time. But it's as Chaykin says himself, it's probably a combination of many things. I'm curious, Rodrigo, because I've read many histories of the Marvel comics. I'm getting ready to start the history of the Marvel movie, Marvel Studios book. I think that's going to be really fun. But I'm curious what you think about some of these stories that you discovered in here. Like, I think everybody knew that Marvel screwed over a bunch of the creators, and Stan did kind of screw over a bunch of the creators. But there were some stories in there that it's like, oh, I didn't know this, or I did kind of know this, or I'd heard rumors about this. What did you think of some of these stories?
So really the like pervasive thing throughout it is that this seems like an extremely toxic work environment. Like nobody's happy. Like anytime anybody seems to be happy, like the two other people around them just immediately bring them down.
Yeah.
Right. Like this is like this, like it's weird to say like this is not a fun comic, but it's kind of not a fun comic. It's an interesting comic. I don't think it's a bad comic, but it's like if you thought that working in comics was ever any good, this comic is here to tell you that it never was and probably never will be. So that was like my overarching like impression of it. Also, some people are drawn really ugly, and I'm like, is that just like Chaykin is like, well, this person was not very attractive, and that influenced the way that other people treated them, or is he just like, this bastard was like the ugliest mofo I've ever encountered, so I'm gonna draw him like a total mutant.
Yeah.
See, and it's tough when it comes to Howard because Howard is, I always feel like his imagery is based kind of like on feelings. You know, Stephen has repeatedly said you should be able to tell a character just by their profile. I always look at them and I'm like, bam, here's this character. Woohoo. I know who this character is, or I see this face and I go, okay, I know who this character is. I will say that throughout this book, I kept having to remember and just kind of repeat to myself, okay, Howie's Jewish. Because there are some images in here that I'm just like,
and some
they
jokes
look
and
like
comments.
Nazi propaganda. And I'm just like, oh my God, what are you doing, Howard? And I know it's you know, Howard is doing his standard Howard kind of over the top, you know, this is what we do. It's verbose and it's
and that's actually what I'm talking about. Like, that's actually exactly what I'm talking about. Is there's some characters that are drawn in like what would really be considered like an extremely offensive way. And I'm like, is this something that like from a Jewish person, he's saying like, this is the perception of like, especially, you know, because some guys in this comic are Jewish, but they don't wear it. And some characters are constantly dropping like Yiddish terms and stuff like that, right? So like there's like a difference, there's different levels of Jewishness and like sort of like diaspora Jewish it like throughout this whole thing.
Alfred Kessler puzzles me because at some points I feel like this guy is Will Eisner, but it's clear that Dan Fleischer has a lot more Will Eisner, the guy with the pipe and the gray hair and where he's, you know, just a schmuck. But see, now they got me doing it. But there are points where I'm like, who is Kessler supposed to represent? And I'm just like, I don't know. Is he just like a composite of everybody?
Is that, I mean, I don't know if that's the point, right? I think that
is it.
I don't think it is. I don't think that naming names, what we're doing right now does not help the discussion of the story, because what we should be thinking about is, how are these creators treated? Why were they not allowed to unionize? Why was their original artwork not given back? Why were they not given proper credits? Why were they not allowed to get proper pay rates? Why were they being dismissed? You know, the main female lead, she's basically all three of them lost jobs because people found out that they worked in the comic book industry. I mean, these are things that really happen to people, and I guess I'm more interested in the stories than who the people are, if that makes sense. I mean, it's fine, because I did play the same game that you guys are doing right now with trying to figure out who's who. In fact, they mentioned one of the people at the Senate hearings, and I was like, is this Walt Kelly or Al Cap? And I'm pretty sure they're referencing Al Cap, because he was the one that was like, oh yeah.
Again, my immediate recall of comics history is not great, right? I don't know who most of these people are. I had to do a little bit of research. But it's so hard not to play that game. And maybe if the point is look at how they're treated, look at what their lives are like, maybe that makes this comic kind of ineffective because of that. Because these are characters, so you immediately get invested, especially in like sort of like our 3 point of view characters that keep kind of hopping back and forth through the timeline. You want to know who they are. And then there are things that are distracting to that. Even if you're not like, who is this guy? You're like, why does this guy look like an awful caricature? Like, how important is it that one of two women here, which is also a commentary on the comic book industry, sure, but that like there's only two women, and one of them is like very importantly pointed out that she sleeps around with everybody in the industry, right? It's like, is that very important? Like, is like, right? You like, it's hard to not get hung up on the details.
No, you're right. I mean, you're right. But I guess that also kind of plays into it as like, well, is this person, was she actually this way, or was she forced to do these things to keep jobs? And what does that say about the industry?
Or is that the perception of Chaykin?
Yes. Right. It could be that as well. And that's, I mean, it's really hard to divide this comic up. I don't know. There's a lot of different themes in here that we could explore and look at, you know, especially how when Jack dies and they give the speech and then the next creator dies and the Stan Lee character is giving the exact same speech, and pretty soon it diminishes everybody's deaths and their importance in the industry. And it just feels like, churn. And what is a friend of mine said that use this phrase, a mighty yop, right? And this mighty yop is just this Walt Whitman thing where you just have to scream out at the world about how you're feeling or what you're going through. This loud, harsh cry for help or yelp. And I kind of feel like Hey Kids Comics is Chaykin's mighty yop.
I can definitely see it, and I feel like, God, it may have been 10 or 12 years ago, but it seems like forever ago now, where the oral history of the first days of Marvel Comics was all the rage, and everybody was reading it. And I remember being extremely irked and unable to finish it. And the reason why is because it felt like the whole focus of that story, and to some degree this story, is, hey man, everything you know is wrong. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. It's a perception thing. You know, hey, Rashomon, we all get it. The elephant is totally like a serpent, you guys. But I thought it was like a big tree trunk. Exactly. There's also the important question that I kept asking myself throughout this, and it's going to come out sounding very accusatory. So give me the benefit of the doubt, but who the hell is Howie Chaykin to tell these people's stories? And that's the thing, you know, it feels like as much as you want to say, hey, we're showing the struggles that people went through, or we're showing the real deal behind it. But like the Tom Hollenbeck character is very clearly, this is a person that Howard doesn't like. And you get to a point where you have the constant, pillaring of the Stan Lee analog. And I'm not even saying it's not justified, saying Stan Lee came out and said many of the things that his analog in this story said. How'd you come up with these stories? I stole them. But throughout the story, it really comes down to another question of, as with so many things that are an oral history, it's the perspective of the people telling the story. And so if we say, that Bernita is Ramona Fraden and Marie Severin, which she does have elements of both, or if we say that, I feel like Ted Whitman has bits of, I don't know if you guys remember Matt Baker, who was just a seminal good girl artist back in the late 40s. Yeah. He was the one who turned Phantom Lady from the flat-chested brunette girl into the pneumatic Vavavoom girl that literally was a major focus point of the whole HUAC hearings or whatever that mess was with Dr. Wortham. These characters feel like they have bits and pieces of all of those. And I say to myself, okay, so let's say this character is Al Cap. What special insight does Howard have to Al Cap?
So years ago, when I worked at another company, we were covering all sorts of things in the entertainment industry. And there was this one person that I didn't particularly like, but he decided that he was going to write a bunch of articles on his sites based on stories that he heard while hanging out with bars, while hanging out in bars with people in the industry. And so I kind of, and so the idea was that he can tell these stories. And actually, what's her name, who ran Deadline before they kicked her out, was kind of the same way when she left to go do the other site before she passed away. Both of them were like, I'm just retelling these stories secondhand so that somebody doesn't get in trouble, right? It's like, hey, I was sitting in a bar the other day and I was talking to this guy who was telling me that of all crazy things, that this person from Discovery Networks is going to be running Warner Brothers. They think this is a terrible idea, and I've got to agree with them. And here's why. And here's some other things that I heard other people say about this person. And me, as the person who's gathering this, gets to retell the story in a different way. But everybody in the know knows what you're talking about. But you have this kind of layer of protection, right? Because it's all kind of hearsay, even if the hearsay is mostly true in these cases. And so I think that's. So Chaykin gets to tell these stories because he's heard them enough times, and he is just collecting them and telling the tale and passing it on to the next generation of people who maybe want to work in comics, or maybe after reading this don't want to work in comics, or have a resolve to be better than the people in these stories. So I think that's where he gets the permission to tell these stories.
Maybe. And now that I think about it, I think Ray Clark may be Joe Simon, but that's neither here nor there, and we're away from there.
It's so hard. It's so hard to not.
Yeah, no,
do
it is.
I'm like,
no, it is.
I'm like
going to go through and
who hung out somebody else out the window.
Right. And there are stories that I think most, even just like the most casual comics fans may have heard, Max Gaines melting down in front of the House committee and freaking out because he's on his diet pills, and everybody having, just tearing him to pieces. Yeah,
he's not only on methamphetamines for weight loss, he was also on coffee and up all night. So,
yes.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Also,
so what you guys,
Senator Cleghorn, crack me up. Do you guys know about Senator Cleghorn?
No.
From the Fred Allen. Okay, the existence of the character Foghorn Leghorn, who talks like this, who's a chicken, is a parody of Senator Cleghorn, who was a radio character on the Fred Allen Show back in 1945. So having this character be named to reference this buffoon, this congressional buffoon of the 1950s, and then putting him at the head of the comic book, basically the mess in 1954-55. That's one of those moments where I'm like, okay, you got me there, Howie. That was good. I love it, Howard. You're my friend again. We'll go read Black Kiss and we'll have fun. But
so, what you guys think? What's the bottom line thought on this? Yeah, Matthew, go for it.
I hated this.
Really?
Yeah, I was so distracted by the name game. I was so distracted by my own personal conspiracy wall with the red strings and the photographs and trying to figure out who the hell Pepe Sylvania is, that I couldn't really enjoy the narrative. And when I did, get past that and really focus and drill down into the narrative, it felt very artificial to me, because our main characters, even if you say, okay, this guy isn't supposed to be X, but something will happen where you'll be like, okay, that's clearly a story about Wally Wood. That's clearly a story about John Romita Sr. Yeah. This guy is almost certainly your Todd McFarlane's. And, this is Max Gaines. When you get past that, this is another example. And I've been complaining about this pretty much all week, as Stephen will tell you from our most recent Legion Clubhouse podcast, which I don't think is out yet. When you have a story that really wants to tackle something that's kind of beyond the scope of comics, a story that wants to say, this is a story about racism, sexism, anti-Semitism. This is a story about capitalism hosing people. This is a story about creatives getting repeatedly ground into the dirt, not just in terms of what they do, but who they are. What happens to them? Somebody literally walks out to hail a taxi and gets hit by a truck on panel. And I'm just like, even if it's true, even if every second of this were true and they said, okay, this is a story and this is fully sourced and this happened to Jack Frasselmassum back in 1954, it feels cruel. And I think, Stephen, your point is valid. If it feels cruel and it's based on first or secondhand accounts of things that happened, don't we owe it to ourselves to know about the rot at the heart of the comic book industry? Yeah, we do. So when you ask that question, why are we playing the Mad Magazine game? Why is it being couched in these terms? Why is it the names have been changed to protect the innocent? If the crimes are such that we are supposed to feel for the innocent. And it feels like a hard argument for me. There's a couple of hard R N words in here. I know there's a few F bombs. I know there's a K that I ran into at least once. And again, I don't hate language. I don't fear language. I told my kid there's no bad words. There's just words that you don't use in a particular context. In this story, every time it happened, I'm like, ooh, well, that's just one more thing that's just going to make my teeth itch. So for me, this is a big pass. It is incredibly well drawn. I feel like it is very, very personal and clearly very important to Howard, but I don't want to read any more of it.
Rodrigo, what about you?
Yeah, definitely as far as the art-wise, I really enjoyed it. There's just like a great panel of like, again, our 3 point of view characters. It's like the 1945 and they're at their desks and you're seeing what they're drawing. Like I look at that and I'm like, I could put that on my wall. But this was a hard read, not because there's a lot of it or anything like that, but because I suffer from migraines, and one of the biggest triggers is like a high quality, like a high content of sodium, and I have to have so many grains of salt with this.
Yeah.
Right. It's like every single thing that happens, everything a character says is like, but maybe this didn't actually happen in this way, or maybe this person represents 2 different characters, or maybe this is the perception of somebody who wasn't even in the room when it happened. Somebody told them and they were like, yeah, that sounds right. That guy was a huge jerk. And maybe they were, and maybe they weren't. Like it's exhausting to sort of try to process this book and be like, again, yeah, this is an oral history of comics, sort of like that golden and silver age of comics, right? And like, it would be okay if it was like a hard researched thing that told us it used to be awful to work in comics, or maybe it's always been awful to work in comics, right? I would be okay with like maybe a more softer focus thing, but it's like at some points it just feels so incisive, and it's always has to be cut with like it's like it doesn't even get to have that incisiveness, because you have to be like, okay, well, again, this person wasn't in the room when this happened, right? So who knows how this actually went? I just found it like exhausting. Like it's like on the one hand, as Matthew pointed out, very distracting to try to figure out who's who or try to prevent yourself from figuring out who's who. Mm-hmm. And then on the other hand, every single moment of this comic, you have to be like, did this happen this way? Is this, whose perception of it is this? So it's a pass from me, unless you want to flip to the art. Because again, Chaykin's art is also a very specific taste, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't always like it. But there are moments in this comic, which is a comic that is extremely mundane. It depicts completely normal slice of life moments. There are panels in this where I'm like, man, that is a fantastic panel.
Yeah. I enjoyed this book for what it is. There's two ways that you can approach it. Either everything in this book is absolutely true, or everything in this book is completely made up. None of this ever happened, but I'm implying it is because of an entertainment value. So there's a couple of ways that you could look at that. I tend to lean more on the, hey man, I heard these stories. I'm collecting them here. You be the judge. Comics will break your heart. And I say that because there was a very popular book years ago, and probably is still popular because I know they came out with a sequel to it, called Hollywood Babylon. And this told the tragic tales and the horrendous tales and the sexualized tales of how sordid Hollywood was throughout its history up until, I want to say, the 1960s or whenever the book was published. And people bought this thing because they were like, oh, is this really true? Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. So when I look at Hey Kids comics, I kind of get a lot of Babylon flashbacks where it's like, oh, okay, somebody is doing this to be entertaining or try to be entertaining. But at the same time, you get to question yourself, and you can look it up whether these things were true or not true, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think for people that are kind of on the periphery of comic book history, maybe like Rodrigo is, I think this is an interesting read just to kind of get an inside look, peel back the cover a little bit, or pull back the curtain a little bit to see what's really going on behind the scenes, because it might surprise you. Because I do think that there are a lot of people out there who look at the comic industry as all sunshine and lollipops and don't realize what they're getting into. And so this almost feels like not only an entertainment tale of, stuff that we talk about when we're drunk at San Diego Comic-Con, to a, hey, for those of you wanting to get into this, read this so that you know what you're really getting into. So for that reason, I think that this is a strong borrow. I think this is a checkout from the library. The art is fantastic, as everyone has said. But I think that the storytelling didn't always sit right with me, especially when they got into some of the language stuff. And again, I'm not being prudish. I'm just saying, ooh, that's a racial slur that I wasn't expecting to pop up on this page. And so you do need to be aware of that for trigger warning purposes. But I would definitely go and read this. Go and read this book. It is Hey Kids Comics from Image Comics. Howard Chaykin doing the whole work. There's 3 volumes of this. We've got a link in the show notes to our Amazon affiliate link, where you can buy your own copy if you like, and a little bit comes back our way. And with our trade out of the way, I think that's where we're going to wrap it up this week. Thank you so much for listening. If you found the show valuable, we would love for you to join us on our Patreon page, where you can catch the Major Spoilers Podcast pre-show, where we talk about Power Rangers and pancakes. So until next time, remember, kids, eat your wheat cakes and keep being awesome, and we will talk with you soon.
Fat Dick's revision of Superman. I could save a few bucks and stand around and read through the covers of the comics on the stand. But although every other page would be backwards, I suppose, I could still read the evens and the odds. Well, I don't know. Guess I haven't thought this all the way through. Plus, as soon as the comic book store guy knew, he kicked my butt out on the corner. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Think about a better way. If I was hulking green or gray, I could just bust through that brick wall, take their comic books away. But then the little meat would deal with all the tanks and bombs and guns. Have you ever tried to read a series with all that going on? Guess I need to rethink this plan. How would I back and board my comics with such huge hands? Guess I already told ya. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. major spoiler. If I'm stark raving rich like a man of iron, I might not be surprised to find that I might actually have the heart cold to follow an entire storyline. But would I really even need to read up on all those escapades? I mean, who needs such distractions when your sister's such a babe? But the downside is such a beast, being shot up in a fun, being in the Middle East with a gang sign throwing soldier. What a major spoiler! What a major spoiler! Yeah, yeah, yeah! What a major spoiler! Whoa, 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 whoa! What a major spoiler!
This podcast is copyright 2025 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.